The term elder emo applies to those who grew up when the scene was popular. Generally, this can mean anywhere from the 1980s to the early 2000s, although as we speak, the movement lives on. You might even recognize this guy, an elder emo who posted images of himself online back in the early 2000s, immediately cementing his status as a meme titled Emo Dad at that time. At any rate, the emo movement can be characterized by three things: music, fashion, and teenage angst. And it is often intermingled with another subgroup, scene, which at first glance appears to be the same thing, but upon further inspection is entirely different. Considering how popular the trend was and continues to be, elder emos are able to recollect their experiences with astounding clarity and post about them on the internet. Those posting online tend to be older millennials who used to be the dominant demographic on the internet before Gen Z, and who are roughly in their late 20s to early 30s in terms of age as they were teens during the early 2000s. Hence, this video is dedicated to exploring emo culture, as well as parts of its spin-off subgroups and what made it so popular during prior eras. So let's start with the most visible aspect of the emo: fashion. The emo look is commonly associated with one store, Hot Topic. Hot Topic describes itself as pop culture and music-inspired fashion, which fits nicely into the needs of emos to wear their favourite band shirts. Because emo is considered a subgenre of the goth and post-punk, post-hardcore movements from the 80s, it styles itself as a counterculture mired in the darkest aesthetics. Snakebite piercings, black swooped hair, eyeliner, and ear gauges are all common fashion pieces of an emo, and many an elder emo today can be identified by lasting markings from these teenage choices. However, we can't talk about emo fashion without mentioning scene. At first glance, scene and emo seem interchangeable, but as their participants often point out, this is not the case. Scene is defined by bright colours and a tendency to follow more fashionable trends, whilst emo is solely focused on the feeling side of things, including dark colours and clothes. Interestingly, there's still elder emos and scene kids out there who keep this look going and never really stopped, like Robbie or Hair Jordan. Plus, Skrillex himself is an elder emo. Just look at the man's old MySpace page and the manner in which he dresses now. These are all hallmarks of the elder emo wardrobe. Back in the day, an emo would use MySpace or Facebook primarily to post selfies or post the lyrics to their favourite songs, back when Facebook was cool for young people and MySpace was relevant. What's interesting is that elder emos will often look at Gen Z aesthetics and remark how similar they are to their own youth. E-boys and e-girls are considered evolutions of the emo scene fashion, as they tend to mix the colourful aspects of scene with the darker influences of emo. As a result, it isn't uncommon for young people to often dress like emos of old, taking inspiration from differing subgroups to create combined outfits. As such, it's clear the culture has never really gone away, even after all this time. Now that we've covered the first impressions of an emo through fashion, we can get into their second love: music. The word emo is not only a shortening of emotional, but also emocore, which in itself is a shortening of emotional hardcore, which refers to the post-hardcore scene emerging in the 1980s. Rites of Spring is widely considered the first emo band, but there is of course heavy debate around this area, as well as what constitutes real emo. In terms of what elder emos now consider their favourites, this can range anywhere from Parkway Drive, My Chemical Romance, to other pop-punk and hardcore areas of music. The When We Were Young music festival lineup from 2022 is a prime example of many of the music genres elder emos associate with their youth. This is why the "Tonight will be the night that I will fall for you" lyrics taken straight from Secondhand Serenade's 2008 banger, Fall For You, are often associated with emo videos, as the music can have such a gigantic range. 99% of the time, the sound just needs to have a distinctly emotional bent to it, hence the moniker. Machine Gun Kelly is famously co-opting the pop-punk movement, and his song Emo Girl featuring Willow is one of the biggest loved and hated newer tracks to reference those older days. The topic of being hated brings us to our next section: teenage angst. It's not difficult to assert the fact that most people who were emo were certainly not well liked at school, and the aesthetic was a way to demonstrate one's outcast feelings. Again, hence the emotional emo moniker. The emotional aspects of emo were buried deep into the idea that as a teenager, people just didn't get you. This is, of course, a relatable feeling to almost every single teenager in the world, as they try to figure out exactly who they are in a constantly chaotic and shifting social universe. This is why anything considered out of the ordinary was so special to the emo subgroup, as they felt like they never fit in. Hence they wore black clothing and hid their faces behind their hair. The teenage angst was reflected in not just the music emos listened to, but also the media they consumed. Pon and Z webcomics were often shared, as well as the picture of a girl and a boy hugging that was the background of everyone's phones. There's a 2006 YouTube upload called The Emo Kids Song, which sums up the feelings many felt toward the non-conforming trend in which everyone conformed to take part, although quite a few of the lyrics have aged poorly. So huge was this trend that an emo panic was manufactured by the media, concerned that the clothes and music worn was causing teenagers to harm themselves and others, to the point where Russia tried to outlaw it altogether in 2008. Clearly, the angst provided by the emo movement was a powerful one, but as underlined by Dmitry Gilovich of the Russian band Mayo, expressing psychological emotions is not forbidden by law. In short, the phrase elder emo is an acknowledgement of the fact that what was once cool and new inevitably becomes old and stale. By referring to themselves as elder, they embrace the idea that their tastes in fashion and music, plus that expression of outcast status, have no longer become cutting edge. I'm going to be honest here, it is incredibly likely that I have missed some crucial elements of the emo subculture, so if you have any experiences or more ideas about what makes someone fit into that group, please comment below. See you next time on Lessons in Internet Culture.